up at 6:30. So I can prepare. Okay, 46A, enough about me. Yeah. Yeah, let's go. 46A. So we had a question about Tenufa and Shechita. Which one sanctifies the bread on Shavuos? You bring 2 lambs and you bring 2 breads. And the question was, Shechita for sure does the job. Does waving do the job also? So in the middle, we wanted to bring this Bryce, and maybe we'll go 3 lines back just to, yeah. The Shechita Osazika, the Shechita really bind the 2 together, that once you have one, you need the other one also. Veraminhi, we have a Bryce that says the following, Achelo Shachta, until you shechted, what happens? Nifras Lachma, the bread breaks. So what do? You haven't shechted the animal yet, and now the bread breaks. So Yavi Lechem Acher, bring other bread, the shochet, and then shecht it. Okay, that's step 1. Case 1. Case 2, Misha Shachta, you shechted already, and now Nifras Lachma, and now the bread broke. So now what do? Hadam Yisrak, the Habasar Yochal, the blood, you continue on, you throw the blood onto the altar, the Habasar Yochal, you can eat the meat of the sacrifice, but it's not going to count as your Shavuos offering. It's like we had on Daf Beis and Tzvachim. Sometimes you have cases where you can keep bringing the offering, but it's not going to count for your obligation. That's what happens over here. Since the bread broke, and you need the bread to be whole, they go together. So Habasar Yochal b'yidei nidro lo yatzam. Really, you haven't fulfilled your vow. It means your obligation of the lambs on Shavuot you have not fulfilled. Okay. The halechem apostle, and the bread itself is invalid. Case number 3. Nizrak hadam, once you threw the blood, toreim min hashalem al haparus. Once the blood has been thrown, so now all the bread counts, and even if one of the breads broke, but you could still take from a whole bread to give to the Kohen. So fine. So that's the first scenario. Now, Ad Shelo Shachta. Sorry, we're talking about not Shavuot. We're talking about a Toda. Sorry, a thanks offering. You have 40 breads with a thanks offering. So out of the 40 breads, there's 4 different kinds of breads, and one of each kind goes to the Kohen. So if one of the breads broke, you can still remove a whole bread. So let's say you have 4 groups of 10. So in group 1. In group A, one of the breads is broken, but you could still take a whole bread and give it to the Kohen. Even though one of the breads is broken, it still counts because it all happened after the blood was applied. At that point already, it's okay. Fine. Now, scenario number 2. Ad shelo shachta, until you have shechted, what happens? Yotze lachma, the bread leaves the premises, it leaves the courtyard, which is invalidation. It's called a psul yotze. It left the premises. So, like a child trying to skip school, right? They leave the premises. So, they left the courtyard. Okay, they left Jerusalem. Wow, because it's a Toda. Toda's a Kachim Kalim, and you have more. Okay, yeah, very good. Okay, they went to Beit Shemesh. So, Achelo Shachta Yatza. So, Achelo Shachta Yatza Lachma. So, what do? Machnisa, you bring it back. The Shochet. It's before the Shechita, so the bread is not sanctified yet. So, it left. You brought it back, you can do the shechita and continue with your way. Now, what happens? Scenario number 2, Misha Shachta. Once you slaughtered it, Yatzei Lachma, now the bread left Jerusalem. So then, Hadam Yizrok, you can keep going with the sacrifice, apply the blood, the Habasar Yochal, and the meat can be eaten. However, Videi Nidro Lo Yatza, same as before, you haven't fulfilled your thanks offering because the bread is invalid. Valechem Apostle, the bread's invalid. Third scenario, Nizrak Hadam, now the blood is applied already. And now already, all the breads really go to the others. So what do? Toreim Mima Shebifnim Al Shebachut. So even though one of the breads has been removed from Jerusalem, you could still take from the bread that's in Jerusalem and give to the Kohen. So if our 4 groups of 10 breads, so in group A, one of those loaves is now on a plane to Portland, but you could still take from group A. So you have 9 breads remaining in Yerushalayim. You could take one of those breads and give it to the Kohen. That other bread counts because it all happened after the blood was thrown. So the process is over already. Now, if it leaves, it's fine. So, nitma lachm, yeah. Torah mimashvifnim al shebachutz. Okay. Now, case number 3. So we had a breaking of the bread, we had leaving the premises, and now we have contamination. So same three scenarios. Once, if you have not checked it yet and the bread becomes impure, you can bring other bread and then continue on with your way. Misha shakta, once you've already slaughtered, nitma lachma, now the bread gets contaminated. Once you've slaughtered, and now the bread became contaminated. So here we have a switch. Hadam, you can keep going, throw the blood on. Habasar yochel, eat the meat. Vide nidro yatsa, and you have fulfilled your obligation. Before we say you did not fulfill your obligation, why is it different over here? So the answer is shahatzitz meratz alatame. The tzitz, a special headband that the Kohen Gadol wears, atones for impurity. The halechem also, though the lechem itself is invalid, but the sacrifice counts as a thanks offering. Third scenario, nizrak hadam, the blood has already been thrown, applied on the altar. Toreh minatar alatame. There, you once again, you can take, if in group A, one of the breads is impure, so you have 9 good breads, and you taking one of them and giving it to the Kohen still counts as taking 1 out of 10 breads, even though one of them is impure, because it became impure after the application of the blood, where basically the whole procedure is over already. So therefore, it's not going to make such a big difference. So Torah minatar alatame. Okay. So this is the Bryce, and it's all being brought for the following. To try to ask an attack on the idea that shchita sanctifies the bread. Now, to be fair, I think the assumption earlier when Rabbi Yochanan said that shchita sanctifies the bread, he was talking about the Shavuos offering. The assumption of the question is that the two cases should be similar. Shavuos lambs sanctifying the bread, Toda offering sanctifying the bread should be the same. So now, the salka daitach shchita osazika. If you're going to tell me that shchita osazika, which you told me before, that slaughtering creates binding, it binds the lambs and the bread together. So therefore, kevan de huskaku zelazeh, now that they're bound together, so then kevan de husku zelazeh b'shchita, if silei lechem, tifsel nami toda. In the last two scenarios we had of impurity and of the bread leaving, so what do we say? We said basically that if it left after shchita, you can continue with the offering. So the question is, how can you continue? If after you shechted it, they're bound together, and they have to go together, and now the bread left the premises. So then you told me you can continue with the shchita, you can continue with the korban, just doesn't count as your thanks offering. How can you continue it all? If they're bound together, once one is gone also. Just like the bread is invalid, the offering should also be totally invalid. And yet we say the offering you can keep going, just won't count as your obligation. So how do you explain this? If they're really bound together, so how come after shchita, which binds them, one is impure, the other one, apply the blood, it's still good on, it's still okay to be put on the altar? How? So says the Gemara, okay, we're going to break that assumption. The assumption was that a Shavuos offering and a thanks offering are the same. Says no, they're different. Shiny Toda, a Toda offering is different than a Shavuos offering. Why? Derachmana Karye Shlomim. The Torah itself calls the thanks offering also a Shlomim offering. It has characteristics of a Shlomim as well, and therefore, Ma Shlomim craving below lechem, Av Toda crava below lechem. Just like a Shlomim is brought without bread, so to a Toda which is always brought with bread, but because the Torah calls it a Shlomim, it's going to have a certain characteristic of a Shlomim, such as you can even bring it up. It sounds like when you're bringing it up now, after the bread is gone, the bread's invalid, you're bringing it up now as a Shlomim, not as a Toda. Yeah. It's called a Todas Shlomav, a peace offering of a Toda. So, yeah. But Shavuos offering is never called that. So Shavuos offering, the shchita does bind it, and Rabbi Yochanan's statement stays correct. Once shchita happens by the Shavuos offering, then they are bound together. The bread and the lambs go together, and if something happens to one, then the other one's going to be invalid. Okay, now we had a question before, can waving bind as well or not? So, if Rabbi Yomi says, if you want to tell me that tenufa waving binds. So then Avad Alechem, turning the page, Avdu Kvasim. Then when you lose the bread, you also lose the lambs. Avdu Kvasim, Avad Alechem. When you lose the lambs, you lose the bread. They go together. So the Imtim Salomar Tnuva Eino Zazika. And if you'll tell me that waving does not bind them together, so then Hevi Lechem the Kvasim the Hunfu. So then you bring bread and lambs and you wave them. The Avad Alechem, the Hevi Lechem Acher. So we have a question. Does waving bind or not? So in the event that it does not bind the lambs and the bread together. So then what do? So you bring the bread and the lambs for Shavuos and you wave them. And now you lose the bread. So now what do? You bring other bread. That other bread that you're bringing, does that require waving or not? Osu alechem ton tenufa or eina ton tenufa? Does it need waving or not? Says the Gemara. Now, I'm only asking on the bread, not on the lambs. Avdu kvasim lo tibaylach devade by tenufa. The Gemara understands that the waving of the lambs is more essential than the waving of the bread. Either the waving of the bread is of smaller essence, or the waving of the bread is secondary to the lambs. Either way you slice it, the assumption is that the waving of the lambs is the primary waving. So that for sure, if the lambs get lost, you got to get new lambs. That for sure requires waving. Kiti bailach, when am I asking you this question? Avad lechem, only if the bread gets lost. And now, who am I asking according to? I'm not asking according to Benanas, who held that the lambs were primary. And even if there's no bread, you would still bring the lambs. I'm asking Kiti bailach aliba de Rabbi Akiva. I'm asking a few steps. I'm asking in the event that waving does not create binding, and I'm asking if the bread gets lost, does the new bread require waving? And I'm only asking according to Rabbi Akiva, who holds that the bread is essential to the Shavuos offering. How essential is that waving of this backup bread? Tamar lechem ikar mai. So do you say like this, cave into lechem ikar by tenufa, since the bread is primary, without it you can't bring the lambs, you require tenufa, you have to wave it. Or you'll say, no, oh dilma cave into matirin di day, kvasim ninhu, lo tzarich nufa. At the end of the day, how do you permit the bread? By slaughtering the lambs. The bread will get its sanctity from the lambs. So since that's true, maybe that the lambs remain the primary wavers, and the bread you don't have to wave. Lo tzarich tufa teku remains unanswered. Okay. Amar le Abai l'Rava. Says Abai l'Rava. Ma'ishna shnei kvasim de mekache lechem u'ma'akvi. U'ma'ishna shiva kvasim parvayolim de lo mekache lechem v'lo ma'akvi. So in the Shavuos offerings, we have two lambs which sanctify the bread. There's two kinds of sanctity always that deal with the temple. One is called Kedushas Haguf. It's a physical sanctity of the item itself, and one is called it's a monetary sanctity. Makes differences for the prohibition of Me'ilah, makes difference for redemption, for switching sanctity. So once the lambs are offered, once the lambs are slaughtered, then what happens? So then the lambs are slaughtered, so then the bread attains what we call Kedushas Haguf. It attains physical sanctity of the bread, and therefore a lot of laws apply to it now that it has Kedushas Haguf, has real sanctity. That all happens as a result of the lambs being shechted. The other offerings brought on Shavuos is 7 lambs, a bull, and then and 2 rams. So we're asking now, how come these 2 lambs are the ones that sanctify the bread? Why not the other 10 offerings, the 7 lambs, the bull, and the 2 rams? Why don't they? And they're not linked to the bread the way the 2 lambs are. So that was Abaye's question to Rava. What's the difference? Amar Le, Rava said back to Abaye, Ho'il v'husku zelazeh b'tnufa. He said, these lambs and bread are bound by tnufa, by waving. So he understands that waving is not just a detail, but it's essential. It makes them linked totally together. And therefore, just like they're linked by waving, once you shecht it, it's going to attain physical sanctity. Says the Gemara, okay, but v'harei toda delo husku zelazeh b'tnufa u'mekachu u'ma'akva. by the Toda offering, you also have 40 loaves of bread, and you have an animal being brought. When you slaughter there's no waving the animal and the Toda breads together. And yet, when you slaughter the animal, those breads attain physical sanctity. So we see that you can have loaves of bread and offerings linked together without being waved. So that can't be the reason why they're linked together, because I'll show you another place where there's no waving and they're linked together. So you could answer, but the Gemara doesn't answer, is okay, but once again, Shavuos is different. The Shavuos, the waving links them together. A Toda, something else links them together. The Gemara assumes once again that a Toda and Shavuos are linked. And therefore, if by a Toda offering, by a thanks offering, there's no waving, and yet the slaughtering of the animal sanctifies the bread, so that should also apply by Shavuos. The fact that you happen to wave them together, right now he assumes that's like a side point. That's not so essential. So says the Gemara, it accepts the rebuttal, which is interesting. Ela ki Toda, it means it's like a Toda. Ma Toda shlamim, af hachanami shlamim. Just like a Toda is called a shlamim, so af hachanami shlamim. What does this mean? And therefore what? One second. The two lambs are that's some words in me. Okay. Just like a Toda is a shlamim and it sanctifies the bread, so too will call our two lambs also a shlamim and will sanctify the bread, as opposed to 7 lambs, 1 bull, 2 rams that are not called a shlamim and therefore are not going to sanctify the bread. So says the Gemara, no, it's a big difference. Me, dummy, are they really similar? Hassam by the Toda lake is Valkamachrini behadeh. There's no other offering other than the Toda offering, and therefore it sanctifies the bread. But Hachad igas Valkamachrini behadeh likashu hani v'hani. But here, when the Torah requires all these offerings to be brought on Shavuos, let all the offerings go and sanctify the bread. So I don't like the comparison to a Toda offering. Drop that comparison. There, that's the only thing that's brought with the bread is the Toda offering. Therefore, I understand why it sanctifies the bread. But in our case, the Torah says you can bring a lot of offerings. You do have to bring a lot of offerings. You have a total of at least 12 offerings. So maybe all 12 offerings should be the ones that sanctify the bread. The Gemara accepts, and it drops the comparison to a thanks offering, and it goes on to another offering, and we'll see how we hold. So Ella Ka'al Nazir. The Nazir brings a ram with his I believe it's with his completion of his Nazirus. So, and there's also bread. Ma'ayal Nazir afal gav dikas v'acham achrini shlamim hu demekachi and midi achrini lo hachanami lo shna. In Ayal Nazir, the ram of a Nazir, there's also bread that's brought over there. And this ram is the one that sacrifices the bread, even though the Nazir brings a number of offerings when he finishes Nazir's process, but it's specifically the Ayal Nazir that sanctifies the bread. So we found a case, we have a number of offerings, and one of them is the one that sanctifies the bread. So therefore, Shavuos can be the same thing. You have a number of offerings, there's the 2 lambs that sacrifice bread. How do you over there? It's the ram that sacrifices the bread. Says the Gemara. The Tanya says the pasuk. The S ha'ayil yaseh zevach shlomim. That the ram yaseh zevach shlomim Hashem al sal hamatzos. You're going to bring this ram as a zevach shlomim to Hashem, as a sacrificial peace offering with the matzos, with your matzah offerings, with the bread. So. Melame chehasal bachova la'ayil, the shchitas ayil mekachan. The Torah puts them together to teach you that the sal bachova, that the basket, literally the basket, this matzah comes as a requirement with the ram, and the ram, when it's slaughtered, sanctifies these breads, these matzah, these very thin breads. Lefikach, therefore, shachtu shelo lishmo lo kitshur lechem. If you were to slaughter this animal, the Ayal Nazir, the ram of the Nazir, for the wrong intention, you have in mind your who knows what sacrifice, and you don't have in mind a ram for a nazir, what's going to happen to the bread? The bread is not going to become sanctified because these two are linked together. You have to sanctify it. You have to slaughter it for the sake of a ram, and that will create a physical sanctity in the bread. Tanur Rabbanan says the Brisa, Shtei lechem habos b'fnei atzman. Let's say you bring the two, yeah.
So how do you know that the reason it's linked because of the pasuk?
The reason what? The reason it's
That the
ayal nazir is linked.
That the ayal and the lechem are linked. Stop with this because the pasuk says so. We can compare it to the Torah.
And we can compare it to the Kasam on Shavuos. We dropped the Todah. The Todah's out. The Todah's out because they're the only offering brought.
Right.
But by Shavuos, we have a number of offerings, and by the Nazir, we also have a number of offerings. Now, what if you bring the two breads on Shavuos without any animals? So Tanur Rabbanan Shtei lechem habaos b'fnei atzmon. It's only going to go. And then, though, you can't bring it. What do? The teubar tsurasa. Let it sit till it loses night till its form is long. And you'll have to be burnt. If it's for eating, so it's for burning, so burn it. What's this idea of leaving it for a while till it loses its form and then go and burn it? Where does that fit into the equation? So, manavshach. Either way you go, it's going to be difficult. Ila achila asyon. If really you hold that breads that are brought without the lambs you could eat, well, I have an idea. Go wash, make a motzi, and go for it. So then, lichlinu, go eat them. And if you'll tell me that really the two breads cannot be eaten without the lambs, they should just be burnt. Yeah. So ila sreifa asyan, lisrafinu la'alter. Just burn it right away. Lama lahu ibur tzura. Where exactly does ibur tzura come in? This idea of ruining its form. What is the purpose of that? We're gonna have a number of answers. So Amar Rabba says Rabba. So apparently it was still designated to bring the lechem. So apparently it has some kedusha, but not kedusha saguf. Now according to Rabbi Kiva, it says you don't need lambs. Will the bread ever get kedusha saguf? Good question. I don't know. Like the tanuf on the bread, will that in this case give a kedusha saguf? That's a question. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Yeah, Jules is writing a book to summarize all the art school notes. Say it in 2 sentences. To help the reader. A footnote on a footnote. That's like, wow, that's like a footnote on a footnote. Yeah, right. Did I actually say anything about your question? No. There's no Zika. I don't know if there's a Zika here. There's no lambs.
But then why do you have to? Why are you going into burning it? To say nothing ever happened.
Still, no, so apparently we don't say nothing. We still say that it has some level of kedusha, but it's not linked to that lamb. Maybe you use it for a different sacrifice. I think once it's set aside to be brought for Shavuos, it has kedusha. It's just not linked to that lamb.
Right. So just bring another lamb or a ram.
You don't have.
So it could just be burned.
Yeah, you're
saying if you don't. We're saying if you
there's
don't
a draft
have
of
an
lamb.
extra one. You don't have
no lambs. There's a lamb saved out.
I thought we were talking about a case of lo lishma.
No, we're past that. No, we're past that. Stam, 2 breads, no lambs. What do you do?
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So, Amar Rabba la'olam la'achila asyan. So really, Rabba holds you could really eat this bread. Meaning, you really hold you could bring it and eat it, and it's fine. So, if that's true, why do you have to wait till it ruins its form and then burn it? So, Gzeira Shema Yizdamnu Lahem Kvasim L'Shana Haba. What's going to happen? The next year, they're going to get out of their lamb drought, and they're going to get lambs, and they're going to say, Vayomer, guys, we don't need lambs. Remember last year? We all sat together. We all watched. There's no lamb there. So vayomer ashtaki lo achalnu lachem below kvasim. Achshavami nechol ve'enu lo achshavami nechol. They're going to say, listen, guys, last year we ate the bread without any lambs. So this year also we're going to eat the bread without any lambs. What they didn't realize was last year we only ate the bread because we didn't have any lambs. This year we have lambs. You can't eat the bread until you bring the lambs. So that's Rabba's suggestion of why we let it lose its form and then burn it. So, yeah, Amar Rabba Mina Minala. So where do I get this idea from? Titnan Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says as follows in a Mishnah in Shkolim. So Eyid ben Bukhri b'Yavna. So Ben Bukhri testified in Yavna the following. Kol Kohen, here's your Machzeh Shekel reference. Here you go. Yeah. So the question is, does a Kohen have to give Machzeh Shekel, half a shekel or not? So Ben Bukhri said in Yavna, Kol Kohen sheshokel chote. Any Kohen that gives half a shekel, eino chote, is not a sinner. It's okay. You can bring it. You're not a sinner. So now, even though I think we asked at one point earlier, even though that the Machzeh Shekel is dependent on who's part of the census of the Jewish people, the Kohanim are not in the census. They're not counted as part of our 600,000 or whatever the count is. So even though they're not counted, so you'd have thought that maybe bringing it will be an Aveira. They said, no, if you bring it, you're not considered a sinner. Yeah, we had this a long time ago. Okay. Like 20-something days. Okay, so Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, lo. Ki ela kol kohen she'eino shokel choteh. Any kohen that doesn't give a half a shekel will be considered a sinner. So why don't they give a shekel, half a shekel? Ela shekel ha-kohanim dorshin mikra zeh la'atzman. The kohanim interpreted the verse on their own as follows: the kol minchas kohen kollel tihya lo socha. Any offering the kohen brings gets fully burnt up on the altar, and the offerings that they bring come from the communal funds, and the communal funds come from the half a shekel. So anything that has half a shekel, it goes to communal funds. Communal fund offerings that we bring, kohanim bring, they say, gets fully burnt. Well, hovil the omer we bring on the second day of Pesach. Vishtei halechem, or on Shavuos, the two breads, the lechem upon him, and the showbread, shelanu hein, that we end up eating part of that. So obviously that sacrifice, it can't be that we donate to the communal funds, because these things are also bought from the communal funds, and anything that we bring, that's our offering, gets fully consumed on the altar. So since these come from communal funds, it can't be that we're the ones donating, because anything that we donate to, that we acquire, that's our sacrifice, gets fully consumed. So this is their own interpretation of the verse. They're ours. How can we eat them? The verse told us, any offering of a kohen gets fully consumed on the altar. So therefore, it can't be that these offerings have any ownership in these offerings, which means that we did not donate to them, which means that we did not give the half a shekel. So, so how could we eat them? Now, says the Gemara, Hani shtei alechem heichidami. So, 1 second. Yeah. So now, these shtei alechem, what exactly is the case? Ilema bebos im hazevach, if they're being brought with a sacrifice. So, atu toda v'lachma milo minat ve'kohanim v'achilahu. So what's the problem? If it's brought with the sacrifice, the two breads are brought with the sacrifice, so then the toda offering and its bread, what the kohanim don't donate to that at all, they do donate, and they're able to bring it, and they're able to eat it. What was their rationale? Oh, we can't eat the bread. If the bread's brought with the sacrifice, a toda is also brought with the sacrifice, and they donate to that as well. So why did they assume that if they were to donate, they can't eat the shtei lechem? Elalav, what you have to say is the two bread came on its own. Elalav b'boz b'pnei atzma. The two breads came on their own, meaning it was a year where there was no sacrifice. It was just the two breads, the shtei lechem. And the Kohanim said, "V'katani heyach hein nacholin." How could I possibly eat them? Oh, so what do you see from this? Alma la'achila as, and you see that the two breads brought without a sacrifice are really fit for eating. To which the Kohanim interpret the verse on their own incorrectly. How can I eat it? If I were to how could I eat it? Because I didn't. If I were to contribute to it, so then I would not be able to eat it. So how can I eat it if I contributed to it? It has to be only fully burnt up, which is incorrect. But what you see from their rationale was it was something that we see from their rationale. That if they were to give money for the Machzis shekel, they would give a half shekel. It would go to the communal funds. Then the two breads would be bought, and then they were stuck like, oh, how can I eat it? What do you see? If they're brought on their own, you eat them. So, okay, that was Rabbah. Amar le Abaye, but Abaye says to Rabbah, la'olam b'bozim hazevach. No, they interpret the verse this way, even when the two breads were brought with a sacrifice. You'll ask me, Toda. The thanks offering is also brought with bread, and there they donate to and they eat it. So what was bothering them so much? So mi Toda, the lachma. So lachme Toda lo ikru mincha. Shtei lechem ikru mincha. The verse that said, communal funds for a thanks offering, so they could still eat it because it's not considered a mincha. But anything which is called a mincha, that they're worried about, that they're going to, how could we eat it? It has to be fully consumed. What's called a mincha? Our offering is also called a mincha. The two breads are called a mincha. Shtei lechem ikru mincha shneimar v'akrivchem mincha chadash al Hashem. You're going to bring a new mincha to Hashem. So that's where they got stuck. They got stuck in, how could it be that we donate half a shekel? And then people are going, and then that money is going to be used to buy the bread on Shavuos. Even if a sacrifice is brought with it, it doesn't matter because in their mistaken rationale, anything which they own, which they donated to and have ownership in, and is called a mincha, has to be fully consumed. So that was their question. So it must be that they didn't donate to. It must be that that's why they exempted themselves from giving half a shekel, because if in their head they would give a half a shekel, they would not be able to eat the bread on Shavuos, and they knew that was not true. So, but all Abaye is doing is showing you that their rationale, their mistaken rationale, applied to a case where there was bread with a sacrifice. If that's true, then there's no proof from this Mishnah to what Rabbah said. To our question, if bread on their own is really meant for eating or for burning. Rabbah said it was for eating. And Rabbah brought a proof from this Mishnah. The Abaye is saying you don't have a proof from that Mishnah because it could apply to a case where you have bread not on its own with an animal. And that's not what we're talking about. So we still have our question, is the bread meant, if it's brought on its own, that you have to leave it and lose its form and then go to burning, is it brought for eating or brought for burning? So Rabbah said it's brought for eating. Abaye is rejecting him. So, or it's just saying that you don't have a proof from this Mishnah. So now Rav Yosef gives another answer. Rav Yosef Amar la'olam l'sreifa asin, goes the other way. Two breads on their own are really meant for burning. The hainu taima de lo sarfinan. And what's the reason that you're not burning it? Because there's a rule, lefisha ein sarfin kachim b'yantiv. We don't burn kachim, holy sacrifices, on Yom Tov itself. So that's why it's meant for burning. We ask if it's meant for burning, burn right away. So, not that. Yeah, burn right away. So, but we said on Yom Tov you can't do that. You gotta smile here. So, Ein Tov Yom Tov, we can't do that either. So, Abai says, hold on. This idea that you can't burn sacrifice on Yom Tov, Abai again rejects Rabbi Yosef. Amarle Abai mi dummy hasam lav mitzvasan bekach. There, by regular sacrifices that, let's say, something happened to them, so now you have to burn it. Well, you can't burn it on Yom Tov. It's not a mitzvah. There's no mitzvah to burn it. But hacha the mitzvasan bekach l'srafinu. But here, that it would be a mitzvah to burn it, so burn it right away. Just like the bull and the he-goat on Yom Kippur gets burnt, you should burn it here too. Now, why is it a mitzvah here to burn it as opposed to other places? Why would it be a mitzvah? Yeah. The reason is because by a regular case, a regular sacrifice, that something happened to it. So now, like, you're stuck. So you got to burn it. There's nothing else to do with it. But our question was originally when you bring the two breads without the lambs. So originally, maybe it was brought for burning. Brought for burning sounds funny, but the whole question was, what's its status from its original inception? You're bringing the two breads on Shavuos. Maybe it never had a status of you're allowed to eat it. Maybe from the get-go it was invalid. So you can't compare it to a regular sacrifice, which becomes impure on Yom Tov, which there it came to be originally brought as a sacrifice. It came to be eaten. Now something happened, so we don't burn it on Yom Tov. But here, maybe it never originally had any permissibility, and therefore it's called it's called mitzvah. It would be a mitzvah to burn it. Yeah. Right. Exactly. See, exactly. So it's called it a mitzvah. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Good. So okay. So yeah. Right. That's like the funny thing. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So Ella, Amar of Yosef, Gzeira Shema. So okay. So says Rav Yosef. Really, Rav Yosef. The reason why you have to wait to burn it, Elamar of Yosef. It can't be because we don't burn Kach Manyantiv. Abai said it's very different. Here's lechatchila, like Moshe said very well. It's lechatchila to burn it. So says Rav Yosef, Gzeira Shema Yizdanenu Lahem Kvasim Achar Mikan. Well, let's wait. Let's just wait. You're right. Right now, there's no lambs. There's a lamb drought. However, maybe we'll get a drought soon. So hold off and wait, and maybe lambs will come. That's right. Using Lahem Kvasim La'achar Mikan. And since we're going to wait, so that's why we're going to wait and see if lambs come. And right. That's what you should wait for. Yeah, exactly. So Amar Le Abai comes again. Teinach Kol Zman Hakravasan. Okay, the lambs only have a certain period of time where they could be brought, but after that point, just burn it. Why? It sounds like you have to leave it overnight to lose its form. Like, why go so far? Wait until the hour that the animal could be brought. After that hour, burn it. So Amar Le Abai Teinach Kol Zman Hakravasan. But Lebasar Haki L'Shafinu My Tuber Tzurasan. What do you have to wait and lose its form? Just wait till the time is up, whatever that time is going to be. Let's say it's sunset. So right away, burn it. Don't wait till it loses its form. So says the Gemara, "Mai tuber tzurasan, nami dekatani suras hakravasan." So it doesn't mean that wait till it loses its form. It really means, according to this, we're saying that basically wait till its time of offering is up and then burn it. So it doesn't mean tuber tzurasan losing its form. It really means wait till the time of the sacrifice is up, and once that time is up, burn it, like we just taught. Okay, so that is Rav Yosef. So Rava says no, it's meant for eating, not for burning. So why wait? Zera mishum de Rabba. Rabba likes the first reason, Rabba, because that has to be burnt, because they're going to say next year when they have lambs, oh look, it's fine, eat without the lambs. So Rava Amar Lachilasin, Ugzer Mishum de Rabba. However, Vilav Metame Ela Mikra. He likes the Gzera of Rabba, but not for Rabba's reasoning. From somewhere else. The Amar Minala, how do I know? As the verse says, Moshe Sechem Taviyu Lechem Tenufa, Bikurim LaHashem. Ma Bikurim B'fnei Atzman, Av Shtei Lechem B'fnei Atzman. The verse calls these breads Bikurim. What's the comparison to the first fruits? What's that comparison? Well, just like the first fruits are brought on their own, so Av Shtei Lechem B'fnei Atzman, Umina, and learn from there, Ma Bikurim LaAchila, Av Shtei Lechem Nami LaAchila. Just like you learn from Bikurim, that Bikurim are brought on their own, so too, Bikurim are also eaten. So learn for the Shtei Lechem that they could be brought on their own, and they also are brought for eating. Okay. A little fall